let's see. So we've got a couple people still signing on. That'll continue for the next couple of minutes. But really what we're going to be talking, not huge on PowerPoints, but we've got a little PowerPoint put together for y'all. Can everybody hear me okay? If you want to throw that in the chat. Audio's all right. Good. Awesome. All right. So what I want to do is we're going to be going into the chat a couple different times throughout this. Try to keep this really to the point. Don't want to bore you for an hour. We're going to stick to about 30 minutes, and then we're going to have some Q&A time and a special treat for everybody towards the end here. So let's go ahead. Let's get rolling. I'm going to share my screen again. And all right, so really what we're going to be talking about is everything around the changes coming with this NAR settlement. We're not talking about the technicals, the boring conversations between our brokerages and NAR and everybody else there. We're not going to be talking technicals. We're going to be talking, I've listed out really 5 major key changes that we see taking place with our business moving forward and what we're going to be doing around that. So, and like I said, stick around. At the end, we've got a special treat for everybody here. So first, just real quick, my 2 minutes of fame, right? So if you haven't worked with us or not totally sure who we are, I know we've got people logging on here from, I'm in the Metairie market, greater New Orleans area, and really do business up to Georgia, like LJ, Blue Ridge area. Some folks there should be signing on. Where I grew up, so we really do business all in between there. Now, I run the mortgage firm here in New Orleans, and my background, so I've got an MBA, I concentrated in finance. I'm the nerd there, where numbers are my thing, numbers are my jam, but really the MBA side to it is everything business planning, that strategic focus of our competitive advantages and how we can implement some of those things, helping us with our business. And that's really what the main focus is going to be on today. So if you don't have our contact info, you can always scan that. That's super easy. That takes you to our website. You can download contact info. Really everything you would ever need all right there.
Yes, David.
And I'm going to go through and mute everybody real quick. Cool. Next thing, I can stand here and talk good about myself all day, but I want you to have that validation, that rapport, not just from me, but from past clients, past partners that we've worked with. We like to think we do a good job, and really we're here for you in that sense. Okay. So let's jump in. Everything surrounding this NAR settlement, this NAR thing. So as if we didn't have enough distractions in the market already, right? Between higher interest rates, between the insurance crisis we have going on, and everything else in between. Let's just throw this NAR settlement into the mix, right? So the technicals said we're not going to touch on it. We're going to touch on it very quickly. The things that we do know. So we know that a buyer-broker agreement has to be signed by a buyer prior to showing a property through the MLS, right? And we have to have that specific amount in there. Now, there's no offer of buyer broker compensation allowed in the MLS, and we're all trying to work around like what that actually means for us with our brokers, with NAR itself. What we also know is that seller concessions are still allowed. We don't like to specifically say that in the contracts that it's going towards buyer agent commissions, but we've started seeing some of that already. If you have questions on that, we can always talk about that after. So what we're really looking at here coming in is going to be, I want to get a feel from everybody of where we're at going into this. Are you on the worried side or are you on the excited side? And I'm going to tell you why you should be on the excited side. So let's throw that in the chat of, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being worried, 10 being excited. Where is everybody at there? and somehow I have lost my chat. And then same thing on a scale of unprepared to ready. Have you put some things in place? Have you had these conversations already? Are you completely 100% ready for this, already implementing things in place for this now? Or are we unprepared, which if so, coming out of this today, we're going to be a lot more prepared. There's the chat. I'm seeing some 8s. I like it. 8.5, excited. Nice. Neutral, but ready. On the readiness. Good. That is, I have these conversations every day, and there are so many people on the opposite side of that spectrum. Kudos to everybody here who is feeling pretty good about this. So before we get into the 5 major key changes that we see coming our way, let's just go over a couple quick notes. What I want to talk about is, consumers, they're already watching this. How many of you have already had clients come to you asking questions about this? They're being pretty direct about it. And how many on the listing side of things, how many people have had sellers come in saying, well, do we really have to pay this buyer agent commission now? Can't we cut that out? And we're seeing that already as well. So what is doing some research on this, and if you follow, it's Keeping Current Matters, they pulled this type of stuff. They're saying 76% of consumers, so 76% that should definitely have representation when going through the home buying or home selling process. 100% agree with that. They also polled with a 91% saying it would be super stressful to navigate the home buying process without a real estate agent or broker. And 87% of those said a real estate agent or broker is essential as a trusted advisor for a home buyer. Couldn't agree more. We know that representation is still pivotal. It's vital to the home buying process or even the home selling process. And that's not something that anybody expects to go away, right? So when I said, let's get excited about this, what I mean is that anytime there's a change in the market, we have a huge opportunity. Now, this gets back to that MBA background, but the opportunity here is a lot. So for the main things that we're focusing on with this, first is going to be mindset. So our mindset going into this, most of you said that you're excited, that you're ready, that you're, maybe I shouldn't say looking forward to this, but we know that we've got to take this head on. It's something, it is what it is, right? The market is a term that we use pretty often in the mortgage world, but it's something we know it's got to happen. We've got to have these conversations up front. Let's not be the victim in the situation. Let's be the victor, right? So mindset's going to be key here going into this come August, going into it now, frankly. The process. So we know the process is changing and we've got to work around that. We know that it's required to get that buyer agent agreement up front before we're going on tour for properties, right? It's required. There's no complaining about it. It is what it is. So we need to have that dialogue, or if you're a script person, that script in place to be able to address this immediately up front with the client. Part of what we're going to be going over here. Next is going to be contracts. I feel like that gets into the technical side of this, which we'll leave that conversation for your broker, for the NAR group to dial in exactly what your buyer agent agreements or your contracts are going to say at this point. We're hearing all different types of stuff between different timeframes we're putting on there, whether it's a single home show agreement or a non-exclusive or an exclusive buyer's agreement. We're hearing all types of stuff. And then the next one, conversations, is really where we're going to start with these 5 major key changes. So the conversation itself, what we need to do, obviously, we've got to face this head on. It's a conversation that's going to come up. Frankly, it has to come up, right? And what we want to do is be prepared for that conversation going in. If you're not already rehearsing that, or maybe sampling that conversation with buyers or sellers coming in the market right now, well, now's a great opportunity to do it. when we focus on this dialogue, there's always going to be objections, and we always need to have something in place, prepared, ready for that objection, right? So what I did is I just took three super simple, easy objections that we're already hearing in the market, and just want to go over those with y'all together. The first one being sellers waiting for the dust to settle to list their house. How many of you have heard that? I'm trying to keep my eye over here on the chat for us too. Sellers just waiting, saying, let's see what happens before we sell. Maybe we can save 3% from a buyer's agent commission. Yeah, Brittany's saying yes. Yeah, absolutely. It's been a part of the conversation. We're hearing it. So one of the things we can do is, when we talk to them and this comes up, look, keep in mind, commissions have always been negotiable. They've always been able to be negotiated. So it's not like this is changing from a seller's perspective in a whole big sense that they think it's going to. The second one is for a buyer coming in and saying, well, look, I don't have cash to pay that 3% commission. We've got to be prepared for that conversation, right? So one of the ways we can address that is like, look, no, there are ways to still make this happen. Whether it's seller concessions, whether it's creative financing solutions, you've got options there. Let's explore those together before rolling out a home purchase, right? The last thing we want to do is say, okay, you can't afford it, we can't do it, we're not moving forward, right? None of us are going to say that, but let's be prepared to have that conversation with creative solutions and an answer to that what's going to be a common objection. And then the last one here, sellers not wanting to pay buyer's agents, right? So talking, conversations, having lunch, going to meetings on this, what I'm hearing a lot of people do is focus on the net price or like the net sheets when you're going into a consultation with the seller. At the end of the day, there's a net that they're getting from that sale. If we focus on the net, just like in the mortgage world, we focus on the monthly payment, not necessarily the interest rate. The interest rate, it's objective, where the monthly payment, that's really what matters to them at the end of the day. That net price is the same thing. So what we can do is focus on that and, just curious, why don't you want to compensate the buyer's agent? You're still getting what you need out of this at the end of the day. So we have this common misconception that you didn't have to do it before and you still not wanting to pay the buyer's agent. But again, nothing has really changed in the markets. Second major change here, we're going to spend a little bit of time on this one. I feel like this is probably one of the biggest changes or keys to our business that we will be implementing moving forward, and that is your value proposition, right? What value are you bringing to the table when we're talking with the buyer, right? So one of the main things we can do, one of the ways that we focus is education, right? Of educating that buyer on what NOMAR says, or what NAR has come out with is a list of literally everything you do as a agent in the market and every individual task. I think NOMAR, it's either NAR or NOMAR it's a list of 100, maybe 200 different tasks that you're doing for those clients throughout the process. Having that list or putting together your own list is going to be key here to be able to show 179. So 179 tasks, we could probably get that to 100 to 200 pretty easy. But showing them everything that goes on throughout that process and having somebody in your corner to be able to help you with those tasks, guide you through those. And then the second part to that value proposition is how you do that better than your competitor. How do you as an agent do that better than an agent asking for 1%, right? Or asking for a flat fee or whatever it might be. So one of the best ways for us to help put this value proposition together, if you haven't read this book, I literally have it right here. It's on my desk. It's one of the things that I've gone through this probably 10 times at this point. But Alex Hormozi has this model for putting together a value proposition that you can take and implement in your business today. It's a light read, but at the same time, there's so much work to be done inside of that book. And literally the title on it, how to make offers so good people feel stupid saying no. By the end of that book, your value proposition is solid. Okay. Now, his formula behind this, have it here. It looks complicated. It's super easy, super simple at the end of the day. But what you're doing is you're trying to maximize that top part, that dream outcome for the client and the perceived likelihood of achievement. Okay. So, how easy is it going to be to get their dream outcome? And how much effort are they putting in or sacrifice in the time delay, or how hard is it going to be to go through that process? You take that, you put all that together, and that's really the value that we're looking to bring to the client. Now, I'm going to dive into this in a little bit more detail. If I'll give you the quick 6-point rundown on the book itself. Okay. This is where, and note, this is where your value proposition is really going to come into play. If you need help or want help putting together your own value proposition, this is part of what I do, where I'm always happy to help. We can set up a one-on-one and go through this together. But number one, what we need to do is list out every dream outcome for our clients. So think of home buyers, right? Becoming a homeowner is a dream outcome. Stop paying rent would be another easy dream outcome. For an investor, building their investment portfolio. Or for a seller, you could say getting top dollar for their listing, right? Number two is going to be, second action out of this is going to be listing all the potential problems that they're going to face throughout this process. Okay, now this is going to be an exhaustive list. So think of things, took a couple notes. Getting outbid on a property, that's a problem, right? Insurance, that's a problem in our market. Timing the market, knowing the crime or the neighborhoods in the areas, but even going as far as filing homestead exemption and knowing that process, getting that done, that can be a problem if you don't file your homestead exemption. Knowing the right contacts in the market, knowing the right locksmith, knowing the right landscaper, and that can be on the listing side or the buying side, right? Preparing your house for sale or landscaping coming in after the fact. Knowing somebody to help move furniture, those key contacts, those could all potentially be problems if you don't have the right people in those spots. Let's throw in mortgage pre-approvals. That could be a problem for some as well. And number three here is going to be listing out, we have all the problems. So we have all the dream outcomes. We have a list of all the problems. Three is going to be listing out all of the solutions for these problems. Now, the way that the book has us write this out is write this as or make this a how-to, okay? So how to file homestead exemption, how to get top dollar on your listing. What we need to do is write out all of those solutions, okay? So you're going to see this is going to be a pretty big list as we're going through this. Your dream outcomes, your problems, your solutions. Number four is going to be how we deliver these solutions to the customer. This is where we start building our value proposition directly to them, okay? What we can focus on here is, we call it, it's a DFY or a DIY. So do it for you, or do it yourself, or do it together, right? What is your value for that client working with you? Is this something you're going to do with them, do for them, or make them do on their own? An easy one here is accessibility, right? Are you accessible 24/7? If you're newer in the business, that might speak to you more than somebody who's been doing this for 10 years and has been able to set boundaries, right? So we have our problems, we have our solutions. We're working on how to deliver those solutions to the client. What we're going to do is look at that full list. I know for us, it's like a 6-page Word document of literally fine print of every problem, every solution. And then what we want to do is trim and stack those solutions together, where let's focus on, first, we're going to focus on the low cost but high value solutions. And then we're also going to focus on the high cost, high value items as well. we want to give as much value to that client as we can. So one of the easy ways to trim this list down is think of a rule where if a customer paid 10 times my price, what would I provide? What would I provide them as a value if they paid me 10 times what I'm currently paid? And then the opposite of that, think of how could I still make them successful for 1/10 of the price? So that's where we get those low cost, high value solutions and those high cost, high value solutions. What we're going to do is package all those together, come up with a good name for it. The best dang home buying experience in the South. That's one that I put together. By no means everybody's going to laugh at me for saying that. But think of a way to then deliver that to a client, whether it's a presentation, whether it's a website, or just part of your conversation. But having all this written out and having that plan behind this is what puts together what makes your value proposition whole. Okay. So your value proposition is rolling right into our next point, which is really when to bring it up, right? So right now, most are you have like an initial buyer consultation. Well, with these changes with NAR, we've got to have an initial conversation with that buyer agent agreement and getting that signed prior to going through properties, right? So when or how are we going to have this conversation? Are we doing this all in one phone call or all in one meeting with those clients where we're going to go over their goals, go over our value, and get that buyer's agent agreement signed all in the same day in the same sit down? Or what does that process look like for you? It's going to be different for everybody. Some people might want to have a quick phone call, email this out, get it signed. Once it's signed, then start go showing properties. Others might want to sit down, have coffee, have lunch, or go have dinner with the client before, and bringing that for signature and having that conversation there in person. Everybody operates this differently, but thinking through this now and knowing how you want to handle that is really what we're focusing on here. So just like with us, when we want to really have an initial conversation with the client, figure out what they're looking for, get a loan application, review, put together loan options, and then have a full loan consultation with them. Not every buyer coming in wants that process, right? Some are coming in on fire, ready to go, and need a pre-approval immediately. That conversation changes with those clients, right? It's not a full loan consultation day one, or it's not a quick phone call and application and then a full loan consultation. It's all of that the first day. So be prepared to be able to adjust with each particular client. So I think thinking through this initial conversation, probably some of the first questions we're going to ask is, have you toured any properties with other agents? Have you discussed what agency means with any real estate agents? And if not, do you have 10 minutes to discuss it as, look, now we're required to explain what this is and get a buyer's agent agreement signed. So figuring out that conversation is going to be a big key, playing through that ahead of time before we actually have to implement it, knowing how we want that process to go. The fourth major key change here out of 5, okay, is on the listing side with open houses. And I've considered whether or not I put dual agency on here, but it's the elephant in the room. So let's talk about it. So from the listing side with this NAR settlement, we feel like there's going to be a ton of buyer traction coming in from your listings, right? Anybody agree there? Listings are going to be a big key moving forward. And what we really want to focus on is a follow-up plan or having a standard method of operation around your listings to follow up with those who came through. We can all say we do it, right? You have a listing, you have a sign-in sheet, you call that list after your open house. You're either getting feedback from their agent if they're represented, or you're trying to pick up that buyer as a client, right? But the key here from the listing side is actually having a plan in place. We call it, don't laugh, I call it, in the office, we say it's an FU plan. It's a follow-up plan for those clients. Knowing what you want to do. For us, it's every Tuesday and Thursday. We're reaching out to those leads, whether it's a text, a phone call, or an email, or all three. But having a plan in place to be able to make sure we capture any of that buyer traction, any of those buyer clients coming in from our listings. If they're already represented, it's still good to get that response from their agent on your listing itself, right? So it's never going to hurt to have those follow-ups in place. But when we're talking about this from the listing side, is, we're seeing that this could be the big, let me mute that. So this could be the big loophole in the market. Has anybody heard this? I want you to throw that in the chat with open houses around this NAR settlement. Heard of open houses being the new loophole? Yeah. So we're getting a big response there, more no's than yeses. I'm a little surprised. But so what I mean by this is what it sounds like. A buyer is not required to have a buyer's agent agreement signed in order to go walk through an open house, whether that's the weekend or a broker tour. They can go to those as they please, whether they're represented or not. They can go to those open houses. That's where, say, a buyer who is reluctant to sign an agreement or sign a contract with somebody, they're going out, they're looking at houses on their own. We see this as potentially being the new loophole. And that's what I mean by that is you're going to have buyers coming in that aren't under contract with a buyer's agent and looking at that property because they were reluctant to sign a contract. So that's where we see open houses being a major key here moving forward. Now, the last thing to touch on here with the follow-up plan itself is, so we have a program set up. It's through list reports, but what it is it's like the QR code or the sign-in sheet, and it puts them into, whether it's your CRM or just onto a spreadsheet if that's easier for you. It gives you an easy way to have those contacts to follow up with them. You can set that up with whether it's somebody else in your office designated to do these follow-ups, whether it's an assistant or whatever it might be there, or connecting a lender to that to be able to do the same thing. So there are ways to help with that follow-up plan. And then the last one here, I know we're getting closer to 30 minutes, is maintaining that competitive advantage. So we can all say we stay up to date on market trends, but actually staying up to date on specific neighborhoods, on prices, are prices stagnant? Are they increasing slowly? Are they decreasing slowly? Knowing that for the particular neighborhoods that you work, having those streamlined operations, knowing what your operations are. What I mean by that is not operating on a whim, right? Having a set method of operations is what we call it, where knowing your process from day one, that initial conversation, all the way through to closing, and then the follow-up that happens after closing, whether it's homestead exemption, insurance, whatever it might be there. Superior service, that's part of your value proposition itself. And then what we see is these third-party partnerships, or your connections, right, are going to be a big key separating a quality relationship or a quality real estate agent versus somebody who's new to the game or doesn't spend the time making those connections in the market. Having a go-to insurance rep, you're able to get quotes before they put offers in on houses, them turning quotes around quickly, and those being good quotes in the market. Same thing from the lending side. Of course, I'm a mortgage lender, but having a good relationship there where you're doing pre-approvals quickly. And we'll give Tiffany a shout out here in a minute on insurance. She's awesome. But having a trusted mortgage advisor, not just taking orders, it happens every day, We had somebody come in who, hey, I want to put 20%. I have a lot of money saved ready to put down as a down payment, but uh, give me a rate on 20% down. Well, the conversation from there went to, well, if you put 25% down, rates are 1/4%, at least 1/4% better in the market. And their eyes got big. So, well, nobody's told me that. Well, that's because we're not just taking orders, right? We're a mortgage advisor. Having those partnerships in place helps build you for success, right? And then a last note here, I'd be curious what everybody's thoughts are here on getting back to a world of specialization. My thought here is with teams, right? Where you have a listing agent and a buyer's agent both on the same team, where that way that client knows that you're with the specialist. You're with that listing agent who does this all day, every day. Or for the buyer's agent, being able to negotiate the terms of the contract, going through inspections, and having that specialty on the buying side. I realize that team's not for everybody, nor am I telling you that you need to be on a team or not be on a team. But I feel like that could be one place that opens up in the markets with more teams in the market. So getting back to our scale here, again, I'm surprised you had a lot of people that were excited and ready about this up front. I told you I was going to try to keep this portion to about 30 minutes, but hopefully more of you are leaning more towards this excited and ready and knowing exactly what you need to implement or what you need to do moving forward, preparing for this come this time in August next month. So before we jump on to the next slide, some participation in the chat. So walking away from these 5 major changes that we see coming our way, I want to see some actionable items, what you feel like you can do this week. It's 3:30 on Thursday. That means we have Friday and the weekend. So let's say by Monday, actionable items you can do between now and Monday to have a better plan in place and prepare to win come this NAR settlement in August. What are some things you can do over the weekend, tomorrow, to help prepare for this and be 100% ready? Refine the process at 100%. Knowing your process is you're 80% ahead of everybody else. Just having a process, refining it is even better. Role playing the objections and rebuttals. Absolutely. If we're not doing that already, or I hear some people who are going ahead, they're practicing these conversations on clients coming in right now. I think that's great. Some people have been doing it. Some people, now's the time to start doing that script, doing that role playing. Brittany said that value proposition, that is going to be huge. Past Erica, the presentation. So the presentation, I'm going to take that as your value proposition. It's going to be key. Absolutely. So for those who didn't have action items coming out of this, here's a list for the most part in order of how I feel like this needs to be handled. First is creating that script, addressing this up front, knowing that it's required to get that signed up front. So let's have a conversation in place, ready to go, practicing that with colleagues, and determining your process to present that value to those clients moving forward. Formalizing your value proposition. Madeline nailed it on the head. Having that value proposition in place and a way to show that to the customer. That's probably the hardest part to this, is having the vehicle to show your value to them. We can talk about it. Maybe we have some marketing flyers or we have some papers that we're bringing to those consultations, being able to show that value and how your value is higher than a competitor's. The follow-up plan for open houses. I personally feel like this is going to be a huge key. Having those unrepresented buyers coming in the door of your listings with your open houses and having a plan in place, a structure of how you're following up with them, where it's methodical, where they're probably not buying a house for another 3 weeks or putting in an offer for another 3 weeks or a month. being that point of contact, them knowing that you're there ready to go. And then lastly, determining your competitive advantage. How are you better than somebody else in the market? Realizing that full commission versus taking a lower portion there. So what I want to do is open it up for questions first. I've got 2 questions for y'all. Let's open it up. Everybody should be on mute, but you can take yourself off if you have a particular question, and then we'll get to our last share here at the end. Y'all are going to make this easy? It seems like it. Okay. So the name of the book. So the book, it's by Alex Hermosi, and it is $100 million offers. I have it on my desk by Alex Hermosi. It will walk you through, I think it's like 20 bucks on Amazon. It will walk you through that value proposition and have that dialed in by the end of that. It's probably worth, I'm going to put the name in the chat. It's probably worth reading it and then going back through and doing it as you read it again. So put that book in the chat. So questions for y'all. How many people have started or have a value proposition that they have put into place already or are working on putting together? Good. All right, I like to see it. So that's going to be a big key. And question on the loophole. What you got?
Can I just ask like this because it's too much to put in a text
Yeah,
in a chat? Okay, great.
absolutely.
Hey, Cameron, this is Gigi. So
Hey,
I'm kind of curious to know. I have a lot of listings and I am struggling to get buyers or agents or brokers to open houses and broker tours. And I'm just kind of wondering, is anybody else experiencing that? And then my second question slash comment is I put neutral because I see I'm a little bit concerned about like affordable buyers and this being an issue for them and being able to talk to them in helping to get them to a place where they will be able to afford the commission.
yeah,
That's really difficult, and I'm really trying to see what lenders are doing. I don't think I've heard that they said that they will let the buyer finance the commission, and I just don't think that's the best solution. Just personally, that's me. But
yeah.
I
So
don't know how to talk about that with them yet.
I have one more slide. I'm going to share with you everything lending, and then we're going to have a part 2 series to this where we're going to do the same thing and hop on and talk through loan scenarios, talk through numbers, underwriting guidelines. So I definitely plan on hitting that. That's my share for y'all at the end of this. As we've gone ahead, we've put together a website for that through Linktree. But to answer your first question on the open houses, I mean, this is coming from my experience with helping sponsor these things, is it's hit or miss. There are some where you've got 6, 7 agents with buyers or 6 or 7 buyers coming in over the weekend, and that same house the next weekend is nothing, is nobody coming through. And it seems like the more people I talk to, we haven't figured out a rhyme or reason why.
Yeah.
The loophole here is that, we expect that there's going to be some buyer pushback as far as signing those buyer agent agreements. Um, for every 10 buyers that come in, 8 of them will probably sign it and be perfectly fine, move forward like normal. but you're always going to have those couple who are hesitant or say they want to think it over, but in the meantime, they're going to every open house on the weekend in their neighborhood. That's where I feel like we're going to be picking up traction with the open houses themselves, with those buyers coming in, realizing, and it's going to take a minute for them to realize, but realizing that, they don't have to sign contracts. They don't have to do any paperwork to walk through houses on the weekend or on broker tour, right? So that's where I see that actually picking up steam in the markets. Let's check the chat real quick. And then my second question for anybody here works out of an office here in the city or around the city, greater New Orleans, if you feel like this would be beneficial to have this discussion in front of your office, shoot me an email. That QR link, that's going to take you to all my contact information. But shoot me an email, and happy to get a time on the schedule where we'll actually come to the office and talk through this, whether it's this particular presentation or if it needs to be the one leaned more towards the lending side to this and ways we're seeing to help with the creative financing, to be able to go ahead and have that approach and have that in place prior to. And now last one here before I let everybody go, it's 3:44. We're almost right on the dot. But so we're going to we've already put together a part 2 series for this. That QR link, that is the link to the Eventbrite episode where we're having this in a couple of weeks in August, where we're going to be going over everything mortgage, everything financing related to this NAR settlement, between different loan scenario breakdowns of working in buyer's agent commissions, whether it's through seller credits or whatnot. And we do that, but then there's a low appraisal because we overbid the property. Well, what happens then? That's all part of those loan breakdowns. And underwriting guideline changes. VA came out, made some comments in a good way. We'll be going over those in detail as well. So I think the QR code is the Eventbrite link. Or actually, it's going to take you to our link tree where we have a couple different videos already recorded with different loan scenario breakdowns. And I think at the top of that, there's the link for the Eventbrite for our part 2 of this series. And Scott's saying it seems like everything's going to be based around seller concessions for the most part. There has been talking with our CFO and our director of underwriting. There's not really any chatter in the markets as far as increasing those seller credits to help accommodate these commissions being worked in, or chatter in the markets of loan programs changing, allowing for higher LTVs to work that in. It's as surprising as it is, even at our level, there's not that talk in the mortgage industry yet. I would be shocked if NAR is not working on things. They've got a little more sway in the market in the political sense, to be able to help push some of those changes. But the chatter on this is very, very little. So that's really going to wrap it up. Link to the next episode there. Any last questions before we get going with the rest of our day? Awesome. Well, thanks for everybody for attending. Good turnout. Thanks for interacting with the chat, and look forward to seeing y'all at the next event. And we will go from there. If you need anything in the meantime, everybody's got my cell, my office number, my email. Feel free. Always happy to help. Any questions, helping put together those value propositions. And I will see y'all next time.